facilities that we have and the 45,000 patients that we treat here from the 9 South Central Pennsylvania counties that we are responsible for, I bring you greetings. In a very simple word, while things are not always going as well as one might hope, as you see in the news for the VA nationally, at VA locally, at Lebanon's VA, your VA, things are going very, very well. I think some of you know that the Secretary of VA was just with us 2 weeks ago for the ribbon cutting and dedication of our Center for Veterans Enterprise. It's part of a multi-platform system that we are assisting homeless veterans, veterans who have suffered from substance abuse and other behavioral health issues. We have a dorm now that will house 43 different veterans, and then the office and treatment center, and then this last building, the Center for Veterans Enterprise, where veterans will be trained in various occupational skills. They will learn how to use computers and how to apply for jobs online. They will also receive different treatments there. The interesting thing that you need to know is that during the visit of the Secretary, there was another gentleman there from California who actually has sued VA nationally over some of the treatment that soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have received, saying that it's not adequate. He left Lebanon so impressed that he has asked the Secretary to make the domiciliary that we have there the model for the whole nation. And just yesterday, we dedicated had a ribbon cutting ceremony over in Berks County, where we have our brand new community or outpatient clinic there in Wyomissing, actually. It is the newest one in the nation, and what you need to know about that is it has telehealth in every room, meaning that wherever the veteran comes in to receive the care there, everything that the veteran needs is brought to them. Like, they're not brought from this room and then they go get an x-ray in this room and then they go get labs drawn in that room. Everything is done right there in one room so that the veteran doesn't have to move. So it's very veteran-centric. And having this telehealth there, meaning that we can connect with anyone else anywhere in the VA system, any expert that we need to speak with, that veteran can speak immediately with that person right from that room. And it's the only one in the entire nation that has that. And again, interestingly enough, in Little Berks County, we at Lebanon have now become that's called a best practice, and we are now the standard for the nation. And so the rest of the community-based outpatient clinics are going to be based on the design that we just completed in Berks County. Our leaders are very engaged, they are very strategically adept, and they are good stewards of your money, the taxpayers' money. Our budget's $253 million, and we spend that as wisely as we can. I think that you all know that last spring, when the VA was being beat up a little bit for delayed appointments, that did not happen at Lebanon. In fact, the headline in the Patriot News, the above the fold, the #1 headline was, "I believe in Lebanon VA." And we are constantly blessed by soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that are telling us that. We are very proud. Secretary McDonald, during his visit, during his speech, said that Lebanon, there's 152 medical centers around the world, around the country, and he said Lebanon is one of the very best. So know that the care that we are providing the people here in South Central Pennsylvania is among the finest health care anyone can get anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for the update. My experience with the Lebanon VA goes back to as I grew up just a mile away from there. with the excellent care that it's always had that tradition and understanding here in the Lebanon community, the importance there. I was able to take back a small group of performers from the U.S. Army Soldier Show that came through and performed at Lebanon Valley College this past year. We took a small group there and performed for some of the veterans that are residents there. It was just a great experience for those young soldiers to experience the veterans that are residing there. So the Lebanon VA, as Doug said, is one of the best in the nation. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Colonel Robert Hepner. My friend, Lieutenant Colonel Hepner is the garrison commander at Fort Indiantown Gap. He'll provide us an update on the activities here at the Gap and then introduce this evening's keynote speaker.
Thanks, Dale, and welcome to Fort Indiantown Gap. It's a pleasure to have you all here this evening. Fort Indiantown Gap has had a great fiscal year 15. This year, the installation trained over 122,000 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines from every component, the active component, the reserve, and the National Guard. We have also trained our interagency partners at the county, state, and federal level, and have done some multinational training with our Lithuanian partners. We had a platoon here, train here last summer with a platoon from our Stryker Brigade. And we have done a lot of multinational training throughout our school systems here on the installation, which is the 166th Regimental Training Institute, the Eastern Army Aviation Training Site, and a Medical Battalion Training Site. So Fort Indiantown Gap is not only training military, but we're training our interagency partners, and we're training our multinational partners from all over the world here at our installation. As you'll notice as you came on the installation, there is a multi-million-dollar project over at the Eastern Army Aviation Training Site. This project is an aviation maintenance training hangar where our Eastern Army Aviation Training Site is going to be able to train aircraft mechanics and aviation maintenance on all the helicopters that we have in our inventory here at Fort Indiantown Gap. In the spring of FY16, we are going to be the standard for the National Guard in being the first National Guard training center to build a $16 million, 400,000 square foot training aid support center. Fort Indiantown Gap has been selected to do that because our training aid support center and our cadre and staff that we have here have set the standard for not only the National Guard, but training the active component in training aid support center and how that training aid support center operates. So we are going to be opening breaking ground on a facility in FY16 here at the Gap that's going to set the standard for the Army National Guard. We also most recently had a visit from the National Commission for the Future of the Army. The National Commission for the Future of the Army, their mission is to look at what the Army is going to look at and that Army's force structure for the future. The Commission visited us here at Fort Indiantown Gap, and General Joseph and myself took them on a tour of the facility, and they got to meet the great soldiers that make up the Pennsylvania National Guard at our unit training equipment site, at the Eastern Army Aviation Training Site, and at our UAV facility and our flight facility. So it was a great visit from the Commission, and I think Pennsylvania made everybody proud, and we will have a lot to do with what that Commission reports on and how the future force of our Army and our Army National Guard is going to be standing. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. Major General James R. Joseph assumed duties as Acting Adjutant General of Pennsylvania on January 20th, 2015, and was unanimously confirmed by the Senate as the 52nd Adjutant General and Commander of the Pennsylvania National Guard on May 11th, 2015. In this cabinet-level position with the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, headquartered at Fort Indiantown Gap, Major General Joseph is responsible for the command and control and supervision of the Army. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Adjutant General of Pennsylvania, Major General James Joseph.
I don't think they came to find out about how old I am. But for our elected officials, our members from the Chamber, Mrs. Sajer, Mrs. Smoker, fellow veterans and friends. I normally read And I do that, as I was talking with Representative Diamond. I don't like to get misquoted, so I find out if I do read and I read it in the paper the next day and it's wrong, at least I could send in what I really did say. So on behalf of Governor Wolf, the 20,000 soldiers and airmen of the Pennsylvania National Guard are nearly 1 million veterans of Pennsylvania. Thank you for your enduring support of all of us in the military and the National Guard in particular. There's an adage that the National Guard is comprised of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. They are your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers, or employees, and some are your family, as you just mentioned, although you might be in the reserves. Lebanon County is the heart of the Pennsylvania National Guard and Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Fort Indiantown Gap serves as headquarters for both organizations, as well as Bob just said, a major training and logistics hub, which last year was the second most active National Guard training facility in the United States, and I believe this year we might hit #1. It is also the home of several large schoolhouses for military members and even for law enforcement. We had a lot of law enforcement training here today. So when you leave, please be careful. Unlike the active duty military, many of those who work and train at our facilities are members of your local community. They make the transformation from being a civilian to service member every month, an extraordinary task that we often take for granted. Chamber members are also extraordinary as well. No community will thrive without business leaders who are willing to take the necessary risks required to ensure the sustainability of the region's economy. You have answered that call despite an economic climate where some people feel better hiding their money under their mattress than investing it in their dreams. Your efforts ensure the sustainability of Lebanon County's economy. I'm here to talk about my business, the Pennsylvania National Guard. For us, business is good. At nearly 20,000 voluntary members, and I say voluntary because when I came in, there was a draft. All of our soldiers and airmen, when they raise their hand, they're doing it knowing that probably within a year of enlisting, they're going into harm's way. And we have not had one bad year in the last 14 years. In fact, now, my Army strength is supposed to be, authorized strength is 15,273. We're at 15,800, and we've been cresting at 15,800. I'm putting a lid on it because that's all the money I can squeeze from our federal counterparts to pay for those extra folks. So we're doing great, not only because we treat our soldiers and airmen well, but we have always in Pennsylvania had some patriotic folks. So I thank them for that. At nearly 20,000 volunteer members, we are manned at 100% strength and in a position to grow with recruits always looking to join. All this despite sending upwards of 40,000 men and women overseas in the last 14 years. In 2015, about 100 soldiers deployed, mostly from the 213th Human Services Company, based here at Fort Indiantown Gap, and the 828th Finance Company stationed at Lebanon Readiness Center. These two Lebanon County companies are among the most frequently deployed units in the state. In the finance unit, they have deployed 11 times in 14 years. Over the next year, we are scheduled to deploy another 350 soldiers, including many from your region. We have managed to maintain high recruiting and retention numbers by ensuring that the men and women who proudly serve their country as part of the National Guard have the support that they need to focus on their mission while they are deployed. And when they return, we have programs in place, many that we mentioned before from CARE, to help them make the transition home or assist them when that transition does not go according to plan. For instance, programs such as post-deployment health reassessment and Yellow Ribbon program were born out of necessity. We found that troops were slipping through the cracks while processing from their returning home base. It's amazing that someone will hide or ignore what they will hide or ignore when they have to choose between proper treatment and an expeditious return to their family. Now we routinely re-examine soldiers at regular intervals after they return from deployment. The reason why we try to get it when they redeploy is when they're still on federal orders, we could get them federal assistance. When they come off of those federal orders, they're on my dime, and there is no budget line item to support them. So what we do is build up these systems that I'm now discussing. But of course, in some cases, troops may not even recognize the symptoms of wounds that aren't visible. Post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries have become the signature wounds of the 9/11 generation of service members. This has resulted in an unprecedented level of support programs, both official and unofficial. Pennsylvania is among the most deployed National Guards in the nation, and we have shouldered the largest burden. We have lost 53 troops during deployments. $39 of which have been killed in action. More than any other state, we have lost young privates just beginning their careers, up-and-coming sergeants with bright futures and military and civilian leaders, seasoned colonels with established reputations throughout their local communities. Despite the increased burden on our forces overseas, we have continued to prove ourselves as a valuable asset here at home. This month marks 4 years since Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee struck this region with a force unrivaled since Hurricane Agnes in 1972. Faced with historic levels of flooding, some 1,500 guardsmen were called to perform rescues across the state from both air and army. When the skies cleared and the water receded, we tallied 268 mission requests from FEMA. Our men and women had rescued 26 civilians by air and evacuated nearly 100 by ground. We helped civilian swiftwater rescue workers clean debris from flooded roadways and homes, and helped distribute more than 46,000 cases of water and 12,000 cases of meals. We even rescued 4 dogs and 6 cats. The main distribution hub for recovery efforts was located right here in Lebanon County, and the Lebanon Armory served as a shelter for local citizens in need. Local PA Guardsmen have also supported events like the G20 Summit, where General Markey was the dual status commander in Pittsburgh, presidential inaugurations in Washington, the Little League World Series in Williamsport, and next week, the World Meeting of Families and the Papal Visit in Philadelphia. We provide security, crowd management, traffic control, presence patrols, and disaster response capabilities like no other branch of the military can. And of course, we are always ready for the next weather-related emergency, whether it's a hurricane, blizzard, or flood. Our troops keep up with this. Our operational tempo with support from our international and internal programs, but more importantly from family, friends, employers, and committees like yours. Troops need this support to focus on their mission when deployed or called up for emergencies. Members of this committee who employ members of the Guard and Reserve Forces deserve credit. You recognize that the risk of having your employee called to state active duty at a moment's notice or called for long tours of duty overseas is worth knowing that you have a dedicated worker with a set of traits and values not found in everyone. The leadership traits, selflessness, integrity, and courage to develop and uniform translate directly to the civilian sector. Our creed says, I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. These ethos and the values define who we are, what we do, and how we conduct ourselves. It is impossible for me to describe how proud I am to lead such an impressive group of men and women, but I will say this. No offense to anyone here, but I go to work knowing that I have the best full-time and part-time employees and co-workers of any organization in Pennsylvania. Governor Wolf and I appreciate your support, as the full-time employers of many of them are the same people. I want to thank you. I want to say God bless you, and may God continue to bless this great Commonwealth and nation. Honor first.
Thank you, General.